Cyberlenium, Nemesis, by Daniel Brian Mobley, read by Claire Glover, dedicated to Jennifer Thompson. Revenge is like a rolling stone, which, when a man hath forced up a hill, will return upon him with a greater violence, and break those bones whose sinews gave it motion. Jeremy Taylor. We came up in the ranks before junior leagues and university grants. The world was behind. It was trial by fire, and we were kindred spirits on the same battlefield. Our paths differ now, but the history we share forever binds us. Translated from Japanese. Ravina Nagatomi, on her past friendship with Jason Korde and their legacy. Good Morning Japan, January 11th, 2055. Revenge Bodies and Robotics, USA, Central Headquarters, Post-Operative Room C, 11:11 p.m., San Jose, California, January 12th, 2055. A dead girl's foreboding words seeped into his ear as the last remnants of a fading dream circled the drain of subliminal awareness. And then, consciousness, reality. The pain, heavy and throbbing, traveled along his arm, a byproduct of recent mutilations. He shifted on the medical bed beneath him. Opening his eyes, Jason Korde forced himself to look down. His right hand, now fitted inside a neon blue, 12-carbon-plated shell, glistened under the white fluorescence of the overhead lights. He raised his hand and stared at the 4 bionic fingers that had been set in place of his natural ones. He tried to move them. Nothing. The neural couplings haven't been stimulated yet, said a cool, feminine voice. That doesn't happen until I'm sure you're psychologically fit to. This ain't my first rodeo. But you know that already, Doctor. Droid mechanic Eden Powell rose from her chair, tugged at her pencil skirt, and approached the medical bed. Light bounced off the honey-brown skin of her face as she walked, the clicking of her heels breaking into the silence of the room. She adjusted her reading glasses, then pulled out a penlight from the breast pocket of her lab coat. Don't call me that, she said, leaning over him. I know what I'm capable of. As she flashed the penlight into Jason's eyes, her face loomed close to his. He shifted slightly as the invasion of personal space began. She leaned in for a closer look, and he noticed her full lips and button nose. Jason inhaled, and her tonka bean fragrance invited him further. The words came from his lips before he could catch them. Dang, you smell good. Eden sneered, but Jason also saw a flush of pink in her cheeks. She stood up straight, put her penlight back in her pocket, and checked Jason's IV line, saline bag, and morphine drip. That's the salt and sugar talking. What would your AI Bianca say? Jason shook his head. It's not like that. Sully's my assistant, my security, my protector? What do you think a companion is, Korde? He didn't answer. She looked at his vitals on the monitor overhead. And before you ask, I sent your precious droid on a coffee run. Threatened to ban her for the rest of the night if she didn't give you a little air. Jason raised his right hand again. Standard bionics for the phalanges, Eden explained. Same as your left hand. The sheath is nylon 12 deluxe, reinforced with nanomesh Kevlar, Tilly grade. It draws a thin line between movement, durability, and recovery. Everything should heal well, so long as you don't go punching any brick walls or space shuttles. We can talk about grafts after that. Mind telling me how you lost those handsome fingers in the first place? Sully told me exactly what you wanted her to. A lie. Now I need the truth. And what truth is that? I'm a doctor, remember? I work with machines, but I still know trauma when I see it. And car crashes don't cut up victims with the surgical precision your injuries imply. Don't get me started about the human bite marks. Jason stopped looking at his hand and looked at her. The less you know, the safer you'll be. He saw the frustration on Eden's face after saying the words. He could handle that, but the hurt behind her eyes, not so much. It was then, and only then, that he considered confiding in her everything he had experienced, not only in the last several days, but the last decade. The story of how he lost most of his left hand, his woman, his title of GGG. Maybe she could handle that, but could she handle the rest? Could Eden Powell handle the smothering weight of all his past sins? Could she stomach all the gory details that had led him to be lain before her in that very recovery room? All the lies, betrayal, death, and obsession that brought them together. Could her loyalty survive that? But at that moment, the room was bathed in a flashing red glow, saving Jason from doing something he might live to regret. The facility alarm, an automated voice, sounded off, and he was taken aback by its eerie familiarity with his recent trip to Japan.
Code Black. Emergency. Code Black. Please make your way to the fire exits. Code Black.
The two shared a look of confusion. What? Jason started. In hell? Eden finished. Muffled gunfire. Screams. The sounds were just beyond the walls. At once, Luvina, the dead girl from Jason's dream, was in his head again, with a warning. Death's coming. Jason sat up. Both hand and arm protested. It's coming. What's coming? Eden asked. Jason tried to get out of bed, barefoot and in pajama pants, but Eden placed her hand on his chest. The violent cacophony was getting closer. What's coming? She repeated. Death. Eden smirked. Like hell. Death's not getting past my security. Fuffo then. He moved to get out of bed again, but she lunged forward. Wait! Eden removed Jason's IV and disconnected him from vitals. Once he was free, she slung his arm over her shoulders and helped him to his feet. She spoke into a sliver streak on her wrist. SS, lock entrance doors for post-operative room C. Send code black alert and location to Agent Spilker. Jason gave Eden a sideways glance. Spilker? Showed up a couple of days after we rebuilt your droid. What did you tell her? Eden didn't answer, only pointed to the far corner of the room. The two made their way there, then she spoke to her supercomputer again. SS, unlock safe room door for post-op C. There was a click, and a hidden door in the wall opened. Eden let go of Jason long enough to move some medical equipment away from the door. As they went inside, they heard a loud bang at the entrance behind them. They entered a long, narrow corridor. An array of firearms was mounted on the walls on both sides. Eden pushed the door closed. Nothing that isn't a matter of public record, she finally said. I didn't break the NDA, if that's what you're worried about. Suddenly, Jason lost his balance. Eden tried to steady him, but he waved her off, then eyed a Mossberg shotgun on the left wall. I think your staff is dead. Is Elijah safe? Eden selected a Glock 19 from one of the mounts. He hates being called Elijah. Took the night off. We all know the risks. And your droid? Jason pulled a shotgun from its mount with his left hand. She can take care of herself. Could have fooled me. A week ago, I was putting her pretty carrot-topped skull back together. Eden checked the magazine of her handgun. But let's assume you're right. After all, she has been upgraded since she was last on my table. I know. So you signed off on it then? I didn't say that, Powell. Between whoever's killing my staff and your breaching of our 7-year contract allowing RB&R exclusive rights to your droid work, you owe me an explanation when this is over, Korde. Jason hesitated, nodded, then raised his right hand. If we're going to escape here alive, these new fingers need to work. Eden sighed, then spoke to her slivestreak. SS, release lock antilligrade for patient C, Korde, Jason. Jason felt a vibration travel along his right arm. He looked at his hand and flexed the new fingers. Although painful, they whirred in response. He nodded, racked the shotgun. Thanks. We need to get to my lab, Eden said. Maybe an eighth of a mile or so from here. I have several defense systems I can... Jason and Eden froze, looked at the panic door behind them. The door warped with the impact. Someone, or something, was smashing through. Eden's eyes grew wide. That's multi-plated high-gauge steel. No way it could, unless they aren't human, Jason said. Run! Jason shoved Eden away from the collapsing steel door. Run! Eden kicked off her heels and sprinted down the narrow corridor as Jason backed away from the buckling door. Jason pointed the shotgun, steadied his aim, readied his trigger finger, then... silence. The steel door was almost off its hinges. Around its disfigured frame, Jason saw a silhouette. There and gone. It was a phantom flicker. Jason backed away from the door, reluctant to turn his back. Eden called to him from 30 feet away. Korde! He turned and ran. He caught up with the mechanic and doctor, and they sprinted down the winding passageway together, Eden in the lead and Jason close behind. They both heard the steel door fall off. Whoever was pursuing them was now in the corridor. The rapid tempo of metallic feet was heard as they gained on them. Keep moving! Jason yelled. Don't look back! Uh-huh! Eden huffed. Jason spun around, mid-sprint, and let off a shotgun blast. He spun again and continued running. He had only caught a glimpse of the phantom as it dodged the gun blast and jumped through the ceiling above them. Jason heard the debris falling as he ran. He tried to track the sounds of their enemies' movements, but their rapid footsteps echoed about the walls. He racked his shotgun. Jason could see the lab's entrance door inside. Only a few dozen feet between them and their destination. A sword shot out from the corridor's right wall, skewering the 9mm handgun Eden held. Jason pulled her back at the last second, and she jerked her hand away as the gun split into pieces and fell to the ground. Both stared at the samurai blade, impossibly long, as it extended from the right side wall to the left, the entire width of the hallway. Jason racked the shotgun, spun to the right, and fired. The wall was pelted with buckshot, and the blade disappeared back into the wall. Move! Jason yelled. Eden ran to the door and spoke to her slivestreak. SS, unlock safe room door for lab. Powell, Eden. It opened. The two of them ran into a large room full of half-built droid prototypes and unfinished bionic body parts, commissioned works in progress and pet projects, Jason imagined. The various pieces of hardware were strewn on several workbenches and operating tables, a jumble of techno-clutter that surrounded a central desk and kiosk. The bulging moon was visible through the domed skylight overhead. Eden shut the safe room door, then ran and sat in her rolling desk chair, surfed it to the kiosk. Jason watched the door as Eden typed. He spoke to her, eyes alert. ETA on that defense system of yours? 2 minutes. That's a lifetime. Better plan? Fair enough. But you know this door won't hold. Doesn't need to. Just long enough to... The glass dome above them exploded as the phantom figure dropped in and landed on the lab's floor with a perfect touchdown. Jason spun around. He racked and pointed the gun.
Die!
The machine man said as he stood, his southern drawl laced with a digital twang.
Mr. Korde, I reckon.
Jason took in the details of the one before him, the one who had chased him and Eden through the corridor. He wore samurai attire, complete with a kimono, hakama, and kataginu. An odachi sword hung on his bag. The Ronin hat he wore, made of metal, cast a shadow over his eyes and K-pop handsome face. He turned to Eden, who stopped typing, grinned, tipped his hat.
Howdy, pretty lady. My apologies regarding your worker bees. Tried to explain my rendezvous with Mr. Korde here, but they had the darndest time comprehending. So...
You killed them, Eden finished.
Release them from the constraints of this mortal construct. Yes, ma'am.
The sponsors of Wicked Games, Jason said. They sent you. The machine man met Jason's glare.
Didn't take too kindly to the mess you left him.
And you are? Eden asked. He kept his eyes on Jason.
Psycho's the name, slaying's my game, and I don't come cheap.
Psycho, Eden said. The assassin drew his odachi. His neon blue eyes flared as he looked at her.
Psycho! Don't you ever call me Psycho again!
Eden stared at him blankly. But that's what you said. Psycho. A grindhouse rumbling came up from the assassin's chest as he charged her, sword raised. Jason fired his shotgun at him. Psycho switched direction mid-charge, dodged the blast, and rushed Jason. He swung his odachi, and Jason dived out of the way. As Jason's body skidded across the tiled floor, he racked his shotgun and fired again. The assassin weaved around the blast as it peppered a pile of lifeless droids hanging near him, and went for Eden again. She dived as his great sword passed over her head, and she landed hard a few feet away from the kiosk. Her reading glasses went flying. Jason, still prone on the floor, called out to her as he racked the shotgun and fired at the enemy. Time! 45 seconds! Jason's head snapped around. Where'd Jason looked overhead. Psycho was in the air, his odachi raised and in stabbing position. Eden screamed as the assassin brought the blade down. Korde! The point of Psycho's blade clanged against the Kevlar-meshed palm of Jason's right hand. Jason pushed back against it as the killer droid pushed down.
I hereby relieve you of all mortal constraints, Mr. Korde,
grunted Psycho.
I wish you peace in your next life as you progress toward wisdom and acknowledgement of the truth.
At once, the mesh gave way, and the blade slid through flesh, tendon, and bone. Jason cried out. Ah! A spray of bullets found the back of the killer droid. He rolled off Jason, sought cover as the volley followed him. Through blurred vision, Jason saw a lithe figure standing on the ledge of the shattered skylight. They let off a fusillade at the enemy, the muzzle flashes from dual 9mm handguns winking in the moonlight. As Jason's vision cleared, he recognized the tactically clad figure. Silly! Rusty-haired thoughtbot! Eden yelled. That's my skin-tight threads you're wearing! Jason had no complaints. The android somersaulted off the ledge, firing as she tumbled through the air. The machine man evaded Selly as she touched down, running along the walls as he dodged her bullets. Eden crawled farther away from the kiosk as the two battling droids destroyed everything around them. 25 seconds! She called to Jason. Your droid may not survive! What? Super electromagnetic pulse? Powerful enough to... Jason Korde did not hear the rest. His focus was on the battle at hand. Selly emptied her guns, dropped them, and brandished a straight-edged knife. The assassin closed the gap. He swung his great sword repeatedly at the android bodyguard, who slipped his attacks. Jason looked on as she fought for him, for Eden, and for Ravina. He tried to comprehend what was imminent, but time would not allow it. Eden's voice found his ears again. 10 seconds! Okay, he croaked. Jason retrieved the shotgun as Eden crawled to his side. The two stood up, backed away as the droids battled on. 3 seconds. Selly delivered a spinning back kick to Psycho's chest. 2 seconds. Her clover green eyes met Jason's. 1 second. A 23-year-old Ravina stared back at him. The EMP detonated. No sound, no visual spectacle, only the coming of AI death. Inaudible, invisible, and irreversible. Selly froze, fell backward. Jason dropped the shotgun immediately. The dexterity in his hands, gone. He fell to his knees, the pain excruciating. The machine man swayed, dropped his odachi, but did not fall. He regained his balance, then lurched toward Eden. Knocking on his metallic hat, he gave her a crooked smile.
Noble effort, ma'am, but no dice. I'm still a tickin'.
Eden Powell's lips quivered as she picked up the shotgun and racked it. Let's fix that. Psycho smiled at Jason.
Believe it was old Helen Roland that once said, "Many men kill themselves for love, but many more women die of it."
Lamonte! K-Bot! Jason corrected. And screw you!
Tomato, tomato.
As Psycho the Psycho advanced, Jason watched the hand of the dead thing that was once his bodyguard defy science and move. At Play 2K, an American subscription, gaming-on-demand, over-the-top streaming service, web series, related news outlet, and clothing brand. Owned by Virax Machina Inc. and sponsored by Omega Me International, it is the world's most subscribed gaming-on-demand and media service, with 313 million paid memberships across 197 countries as of late 2054. The titularly named flagship web series is hosted by former Greatest Gamer Gaming champion and media personality, Sir Marco Vance. The weekly show regularly features an array of industry interviewees, from professional gamers and developers to superfans and special guest co-hosts, Web Sessler tradition. Notable past guests include Finn Wolfhard, Marshall Cates, Ravina Nagatomi, Amelia Van Sant, and Zendaya. Guests often compete in friendly video game contests to raise money for various charities, institutions, and personal causes. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, South Tower, 3:59 a.m., 8700 Gracie Allen Drive, Los Angeles, California. January 13th, 2055. Within a nearly deserted lobby, a Webmonster XL streamed micro-advertisements and screwball content into the wee hours of the waxing dawn. Jason Korde reclined in one of the reception room armchairs. Still dressed in borrowed scrub attire and an old pair of Converse tennis shoes, a space blanket was draped about his shoulders. His wounded head ached as he stared at caricature-worthy faces on screen, preaching their gospel of frivolity. Though his eyes watched the web vision, Jason saw only the face of Eden Powell, a brilliant doctor, mechanic, and friend who had dared to save his life and paid dearly for it. How dearly remained to be seen. Suddenly, the inconsequential content was interrupted. The words "Special Report," coloured in red and white, flashed on screen. A news anchor, an exotic-looking young woman, appeared.
This is ABC 7 News with a special report. I'm Lyra Schleicher. There was a violent attack on the headquarters of Revenge Bodies and Robotics, USA, in San Jose last night. Sources indicate that a perpetrator entered the premises, killing both staff and patrons. At least 22 deaths have been confirmed, with a definitive count pending.
Jason shifted in his armchair.
Among the casualties,
The anchor continued,
was RB&R co-founder and world-renowned robotics engineer Dr. Eden Powell. Sources indicate she was severely injured during the attack and was life-flighted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center shortly after midnight. Reps at the medical facility state that the doctor remains in critical condition. Although the active killer remains at large, our sources report that, during the attack, an EMP was deployed. This could suggest that a cybernetic or droid-related weapon was used in the attack. The Mobile Unit Robotic Police Hunter Enforcers are working in conjunction with the FBI to apprehend the individual responsible. This event occurs just a little over a week after the alleged terrorist attack at the Mayan nightclub in downtown Los Angeles on January 2nd, where a weaponized drone opened fire on patrons before exploding on South Hill Street, killing
Korde. Jason looked away from the screen. Eli Powell was about 10 feet away, the lobby's elevator doors closing behind him. Jason shed his blanket and stirred. He noticed that, as Eli walked toward him, his hands were balled into fists. Jason changed stance. The RB&R co-founder and engineer was shorter than him, sure, but was muscular in his own right. Jason tried to dissuade a physical altercation by offering his hand, but Eli did not shake it.
Korde, why didn't security kick you out?
Eli asked.
Money,
said Jason.
How is she?
Eli hesitated. His mouth twitched as he spoke.
A crushed orbital, bruised liver, broken ribs. Is she okay? No, Korde. What?
Eli shook his head.
Severe nerve damage from crushed L4 and L5 vertebrae. She may never walk again.
Jason dropped his gaze. When he looked again, contempt was on Eli's face. Jason's words came as a whisper.
I'm sorry, Eli. My sister was obsessed with you from day one. Never knew why, but I told her you'd burn her someday. You think I'm responsible for this? I think you know who is, and I'm certain you won't expose them for fear of exposing yourself.
Jason's brow furrowed.
What's that supposed to mean?
Eli tilted his head.
Means we both know this is somehow connected to the non-sanctioned technology installed in your Omega droid. And I have an idea where you acquired it from.
Jason glared at him.
Break that NDA, and you're gonna have serious legal problems.
Eli got in Jason's face.
Billionaire versus millionaire, Korde. Do the math. I'll protect my sister by any means necessary. You're never going to hurt her again.
Jason's sliver streak sounded. He raised his forearm and spoke to the supercomputer.
SS, what is it?
You have an urgent audio message from Celestia, it responded.
Play message,
said Jason. Selly's voice emitted from the sliver streak.
Still no sign of assailant, but the FBI is on the premises. Be careful.
The message ended. Jason glared at Eli.
For the record, your sister respected my privacy.
Eli returned his icy gaze.
So did I. But that was before, and this is now. Out of respect for her, I'm giving you 24 hours. After that, NDAs be damned.
He pointed to the elevators.
Better get going, Korde, before they find you.
As Jason left, an advertisement played on the WebMonster XL.
Mark those calendars, gamerheads!
Raved Samarco Vance.
Saturday, January 16th, Omega Me International, in partnership with Virax Machina Inc., is throwing the biggest freaking party on the planet. Come to New York City for the launch of Neon, America's first super Arcadina. Hosting this once-in-3-lifetimes event will be yours truly, along with special guest and co-host here, the incomparable Ravina Nagatomi. And we promise you,
Ravina chimed in,
it's going to be absolutely rev.
120-1189 Samus Garden Village Homes, 10:59 a.m., San Diego, California. January 13th, 2055. Omega Droid Mark 7, version 1.5, Celestia Celi, Protocols. Prime directives, 100%, synced. Droid shell, 100%, stable. Droid bioskin, Irish eyes. Condition, normal. Neural sensitivity, 100%, synced. Neural recall, 39%. Loading, 16 hours, 30 seconds remaining. 360-degree holographic manifestation, R. Nagatomi, in queue.
This can't get chopped, Kiki, or I'm gone to Victimville for a century. Sense?
Heard you for the 5th time already, Korde. And that's 2, by the way.
2?
Yeah, baby. The Mayan, block blown to kingdom come.
Promised you nil. Besides, I replaced your stalker cam, didn't I?
Screw you.
Not a bottle deep enough, nor a mountain steep enough.
Ah, but what about a whore cheap enough?
The two shared a laugh before Jason Korde ended the call on his sliver streak. As he sat on the edge of his bed and checked messages on his forearm supercomputer, a smile spread across his face. Although he sometimes found her annoying, Jason had to admit that Kiki Toyama could bring levity to any situation, no matter how bleak. He had rarely appreciated that skill before, but after the events of the past week, and specifically last night, he envied it now. The strong smell of frying bacon was in the air. Sally was cooking downstairs. The aroma made Jason's stomach growl. The sliver streak chirped.
You have 5 messages, Jason.
Play all, he said.
It's Priest, Jason. Just a heads up. Rumor has it the dead kid's mother is going for a wrongful death claim, calling bull on your protection under castle doctrine. Send the retainer through the usual channels and call me ASAP.
Next message.
Good morning, Mr. Korde. Agent Spilker here. Another massacre, and your name comes up. Again. Isn't that strange? Death is following you, and now, so am I. I wonder which of us is going to catch up to you first.
Next.
Jason listened for a voice, but it never came. Only an open line of silence, static, and faint breathing found his ears. An unknown presence on the other end. The white noise stretched for seconds. And then, "End of message," said the sliver streak. Jason flinched at the sound of the artificial voice. Embarrassed, he chuckled to himself, then spoke.
Play next message.
Dave, boss, Omega Me phoned. They're pausing negotiations until after the opening of that Super Arcadina in New York. We're invited. Maybe you should attend? High-Res could really use that license. I transferred some VIP passes to your...
Next message,
said Jason, standing up.
Champion! It's Yama. Your father's leaving tonight. He'll be speaking at a gospel convention in Indianapolis for the next couple of weeks.
Jason walked into the bathroom. He stared at the dark circles under his eyes as his stepmother's message played.
Feels like forever since we've been together as a family. Stop by the church tonight. Bonus, I'm cooking your favorite dinner.
Dad's favorite, Jason said aloud as he turned on the shower.
Dad's favorite too.
Fatima laughed.
But I made it for you first, remember? I'd never seen an 11-year-old eat so fast and so much. Would mean the world to me. To us, if you dropped by.
15 minutes later, Jason came downstairs. Sally stood at the stove, whisking eggs in a skillet. As he entered the kitchen, he eyed a second skillet of fried bacon, along with a bowl of fruit on the table. His hunger pangs returned, and he grabbed a strip of bacon. He crammed it into his mouth as he sat down.
It's good,
he said, mouth full. When Jason finally looked at Sally, he realized she had been cooking in her underwear the entire time. He sized her up, then popped another bacon strip into his mouth.
We really should buy you pajamas soon.
Sally set the skillet of scrambled eggs on the table, then opened the refrigerator. But this is our home.
It is.
So, why does it matter?
Because our home has windows.
Sally brought out a carton of orange juice and a bottle of Armand de Brignac, with less than an eighth left. She set them on the table, then retrieved a glass, a plate, and silverware from the kitchen cupboard and drawer.
You know where everything is?
Jason asked. I explored while you were sleeping. She gestured at the glass.
You choose,
he said. The android smiled, then poured juice into the glass. She stopped when the glass was half full, then filled the rest with alcohol. She stirred the liquids with her finger before handing the glass to Jason. He smiled, raised it, and took a drink. Sally's smile faded. I'm afraid, Jason. Jason swallowed hard before answering.
Afraid?
What happens when Ravina uploads? Jason set his glass down and rubbed at his eyes.
Sally, we discussed this already. She and I will make Hanzo, Omega Me, pay for—
What happens to me? Jason stared at her. He had seen that look twice before. The first had been during the break-in on New Year's, after the thugs had blown the back of her head off. The second was during the fight with Saeko, just before the EMP discharged. And with that recognition, he had to accept the truth. Sally was no longer a standard droid. She had become aware of both her individuality and mortality, and now she was terrified of losing either. Jason stood and approached Sally.
You'll merge with Ravina and become one.
Merge with, or be overwritten by? He caressed her bottom lip.
You know how important you are to me. To everything.
Her eyes narrowed. Trish McNamara. She was important to you once, and you shot her in the face. Jason shrank back, looked away. Sally continued. And I have her face now. I don't want to end up like that. In the darkness. Jason grabbed Sally by the shoulders.
You won't.
But—
No, Sally. What Trish and I had, it was different. Toxic. But in Japan, you saved me.
And you saved me.
So that makes us something else. Sense?
Sense. But what about
Ravina?
Jason Korde kissed Celestia. It was a quick but firm peg, an intense little touch, and nothing more. But the gesture changed the android's facial expression, and that was exactly what Jason wanted. The look of fear disappeared from her eyes, replaced by something else. Sally reached for him, but Jason pulled away.
We're visiting my parents tonight,
he told her.
So, let's go buy you a pretty dress to wear.
Sally found her smile again. CNN breaking news. Hashima Island Massacre, 6:01 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, January 13th, 2055. Our global sources report that a gruesome scene of pure carnage has unfolded off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan. Also known locally as Gunkanjima or Battleship Island, has been identified as the latest site of violence for the notorious Wicked Games, a dark web livestream where trafficked victims are forced to compete for their lives in various video game-inspired scenarios. The Japan Coast Guard authorities were compelled to investigate the abandoned island after receiving reports of visible smoke and huge fireballs emanating from it. Yesterday, over 36 unidentified bodies were recovered, and National Police Agency officials remain silent about the exact origin of these atrocities. La Mesa Church, 5150 Jackson Drive, 6:45 p.m., La Mesa, California. January 13th, 2055. Jason and Sally, dressed in a grey suit and an olive green winter dress, respectively, entered the church quietly. As they looked for seats in the nave, about 20 attendees turned to get a good look at them. Jason sat in the last row, farthest from the pulpit, where his father, Pastor Jermaine Korde, stood. Sally sat beside him, placing her purse in her lap. Fatima, Jason's beloved Yama, turned and flashed them a pleased grin. Eyes were still on the new visitors until Pastor Korde's voice boomed, forcing the attendees to face forward again.
Welcome.
He stood in the pulpit, hands holding an open Bible.
The class and I have been going over the parables of Jesus this month, finishing this week's study with the parable of the rich fool.
He flipped a page of the Bible, then made eye contact with his son.
You're familiar with it? Yes?
Luke 12, verses 13 through 21, Sally said before Jason could answer.
That's right,
Pastor Korde affirmed. He stepped away from the pulpit, Bible still in hand, and walked to the center aisle. He stopped halfway between the pulpit and the last row, where Jason and Sally sat. He then looked up from his Bible and fixed his gaze on Sally. He spoke in a raised voice, quoting scripture.
And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store my grains and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God
said to him, said Sally, taking over. Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? The attendees turned to get a look at the visitors again. As they whispered amongst themselves, a great laugh rumbled up from the pastor's belly. When he spoke again, he had a big grin on his face.
My son here is 32 years old, and in all that time he has never brightened the doors of this church with a girlfriend.
Friend, Jason said.
Friend,
Pastor Korde went on,
with such an adroit recall of the Holy Scriptures. Until now.
Sally smiled, but Jason's eyes narrowed, insulted by his father's remark. He believed it was a subtle dig at Ravina, who had been an unashamed practitioner of both Shinto and Buddhist traditions. 9132 Madison Avenue, 7:25 p.m., La Mesa, California. January 13th, 2055. Humberto, the driver, maneuvered the lanky limo against the curb. The wide-stretched sedan came to a stop, with Jason and Sally in the back. The short ride to the courthouse had been silent. Jason had thought about skipping his stepmother's dinner invitation after his father's harsh remark, but he had to keep his word. He always had to keep his word with his Yama. That was the promise. It was a promise they made to one another over 20 years ago, when she took Jermaine Korde's last name. It was this pact between new mother and new son that finally allowed the adolescent Jason to trust and let someone in. With a button press, Jason lowered the partition and spoke to Humberto.
Stay caramel, Humberto. I'll barely be a mile away, sir.
Jason looked at Sally. She wore an odd expression. What's wrong with you? He asked. She leaned back and began fiddling with her dress, her eyes downcast. Your father referred to me as your girlfriend. And since the neural recall will make Ravina and me a single consciousness soon. Jason shifted his weight, impatient. Sally finally looked at him, her face in a glower. Why can't I be your girlfriend? Before he could answer, Humberto opened the right side door. Jason stepped out onto the curb. He then turned and offered his hand to Sally, but she did not take it. Because you're my assistant, my security, and my protector. Jason smiled, his hand still extended. Sally brought her fingers to her lips. But I want to be more. His eyes narrowed with a question. What do you mean? The android finally placed her hand in his, eyes searching. You have brought a deeper intention to my existence. I want to respond to that, to grow within it, and to grow within you. Perhaps Ravenna will concur? Jason was speechless. He only stared into the eyes of a machine that was becoming far different from what he could have ever imagined. Champion? Jason turned to see Fatima standing on the porch, waving. Dinner's ready in 5 minutes. Y'all come and help me set the table. I'm flattered, ma'am, Humberto said, tipping his hat. But Casa de Pico's calling my name. The driver bade everyone farewell, and then owner and the owned, hand in hand, made a beeline for the house. So, tell me, Celestia, is our champion a gracious employer? Sally looked up from her plate of gravy-smothered minute steak, green bean casserole, au gratin potatoes, and house salad to address Fatima Korde's question. She began to speak, but paused, looked at Jason. He only gazed back at her. Then Jermaine Korde spoke up as he put a forkful of casserole into his mouth. Need his permission, young lady? Jason's eyes narrowed. He nodded, gave Sally a cue to speak. Jason is very gracious. Sally smiled. He treats me like I'm human. The statement was met with silence by everyone at the dinner table. For several seconds, only the clinking and clattering of utensils on plates was heard. Taking notice, Sally rephrased. Excuse me. He treats me humanely. He's a refreshing anomaly in the corporate hierarchy. More silence. Jermaine took another bite of his steak, Jason took a sip of water, and Fatima let out a tittering laugh. Well, glad to hear it. How long have you worked for Hi-Res, honey? 5 years. 5 years, Jermaine repeated, before sipping from his glass of water. 5 years, Jason said. She's been an indispensable asset for my daily needs. Jermaine! Fatima chided. Something like that, Jason said to his father. I'm simply asking, son. Does this young lady truly tend to your needs or wants? Jason dropped his fork onto his plate and grabbed his napkin. He wiped his mouth, then clasped his hands and leaned back. Think I don't know the difference between the two, Dad? Jermaine locked eyes with Jason. Oxygen, food, love, Jesus, needs. He knows what needs are, Fatima said. Jason smirked. Apparently not. Go on, Dad. Now tell me about wants. Don't need to tell you about those. They're all you're ever concerned with. Silence. Something wrong with my wife's cooking, Celestia? She can eat, Jason told Jermaine. Drink, too. Right, Sally? Sally looked at Jason, then at her plate. She picked up her knife and fork, cut off a piece of steak, and placed the forkful into her mouth. She chewed, then swallowed. It's good, she said, looking at Fatima. And Jason is well aware of my needs, Pastor Korde. That's so, young lady? Oh, yes. When I got shot in the head, Jason paid for my repairs instead of recycling me. Fatima gasped, touching her neck. Shot? Jason smacked his forehead. Recycled? Jermaine repeated. Repairs? This whole time we've been breaking bread with... Jermaine stood up. Fatima looked at her husband, then her stepson. With what? A robot, Jermaine finished. Fatima laughed. Robot? Like one of those droids? Heavens, no. This pretty girl is... She's not... Right, champion? Jason rose from the table. Let's go, Selly. Selly stood. Fatima made praying hands, her expression apologetic. No, you've barely had any dinner. Sit down. Sit down, please. Jason took Selly by the hand and led her out of the dining room. His father's shoulders tensed as the two passed him. Jermaine turned to face them. Disrespectful! Bringing one of those things into my house! Jason stopped, turned around. Selly held onto his hand. Her name's Celestia, Dad. And though you may not see her as a person, I assure you, she's not a thing. Jermaine folded his arms. She's an abomination. Will anything or anyone ever be good enough for you? Asked Jason. Good enough for me? What was wrong with your life before all this nonsense? What was so evil about what we provided? You go traipsing halfway around the world to play video games, and look where it's gotten you! Jason took a step toward his father, but Fatima was in between them immediately. 1 shouting match and 10 minutes of cool-down time later, Jason Korde sat on the porch steps of his parents' house, waiting to be picked up by his driver. He took turns between staring at his stepmother's blanket-covered begonias in the yard and watching Selly as she looked at a western bluebird sitting on a nearby neighbor's oak fence. The android stood just outside the Korde house property line, banished by Jason's father for being what she is. Fatima came out of the front door, a pashmina draped around her, and sat down next to her stepson. She gazed at his face, but Jason stared at the covered plants. He spoke. Wondered if you were going to rescue those perennials. Got lucky. Been a light winter season. So far. For several moments, the two sat in silence, watching Selly. Then Jason shook his head. You know, I recently asked Dad to pray for me. When? New Year's Eve. How'd that work out for you? I'm still here. You most definitely are. Still, I should have asked you to pray for me instead. I always pray for you. That's what he said. Fatima wrapped her arm around Jason's waist. Jason, in turn, wrapped his arm around her shoulders. She looked at his leather-gloved right hand resting on her shoulder. What happened to your hand? She asked. He said nothing, took his arm off her. Fatima made praying hands. You know your father loves you. He gets the way he does. You mean he is the way he is? Gets the way he does because he expects more from you. He knows what you're capable of. Jason looked at her. What more does he want from me? He wants you to want more than what this world has to offer. I don't know what that means. She looked away, turned her attention back to the android. Is this really what you... Her voice faltered. After a few seconds, she tried again. Is she what you want? Jason watched Fatima as she watched Selly. It's not like that. Then make it make sense. It will. I'm listening. Your father will be on the road soon. You could stick around, have some dessert, and we could talk. Yama, The limo pulled up, and Jason stood. Fatima did too, straightening her dress. The stepson took his stepmother by the hand, and the two of them walked down the driveway together. When they reached the limo, they hugged. Selly came down the sidewalk. Humberto exited the limo and opened the right side door for them. You take care of yourself, Jason told Fatima. You do the same. She smiled, reached up, and cradled his face. He stooped down, and she kissed him on the forehead. She tapped her cheek with her finger, and Jason kissed it. Fatima then turned to Selly. "Nice meeting you, Celestia," she said. "Please, take care of my champion like he's human." "I will," the android said, missing the joke. Selly entered the back of the limo. Jason looked up to see Jermaine Korde watching them from the porch, suitcase in hand. The two stared at one another for a moment, and then the father nodded to his son. It was slight, but the son caught it. Jason returned the nod, flashed a peace sign, then disappeared into the back of the wide stretch. Del Mesa Liquor, 6090 Friars Road, 8:39 p.m., San Diego, California, January 13th, 2055. "Es tu cumpleaños?" asked the lady cashier, smiling. Jason laughed. "No, senora. More like a homecoming." Selly set a case of champagne on the checkout counter. The cashier scanned one of the bottles. "La Grande Dame. Nice. Your ID?" Jason pulled back his jacket sleeve. Using a handheld barcode scanner, the cashier scanned the nano ID in his forearm. "Military service overseas?" she asked. "Just a super long vacation. She's been gone forever." "Your wife?" "Someday, I hope," said Jason. Selly glared at the cashier, her face petulant. 3 minutes later, Jason and Selly, carrying the champagne, left the store. Jason whistled, waved to Humberto, who sat in the limo at the far end of the parking lot. Jason then glanced at Selly. "You've got that look on your face again." "What look?" she asked. Before he could say another word, Jason's sliver streak began pinging. "SS, who's calling?" he asked. "Fatima Korde," it answered. "Answer, audio only."
Jason!
Jason and Selly shared a look as they heard Fatima's voice. Jason spoke. "Yama?"
Please come. I need you.
Jason yanked his sleeve back and looked at the sliver streak screen. "SS, show video." "Caller video is deactivated," said the sliver streak, its screen remaining in audio mode. "I'm here, Yama. What's wrong?" For several seconds, Jason listened to his stepmother's sobs, his heart thudding in his chest. And then, somehow, he sensed that the presence on the other end, the one who terrified his beloved Yama so, was the same presence that had left him the eerie voicemail. "Psycho." Humberto pulled up in the limo, rolled down his window, and popped the trunk. His face was turning white. "What's wrong, boss?" Jason spoke into the supercomputer. "If you touch her, I promise you're going to wish you were dead." Fatima mumbled her words.
No, droid. Only you. Alone. If anyone else...
"I'm coming, Yama," Jason said as the call disconnected. Selly put the case of champagne in the trunk. Humberto started to get out of the car, but Jason shook his head, then turned to Selly. "I need you to stay away." Selly shook her head. "I can't do that, Jason. As soon as you arrive, Psycho will kill you." "You don't think I know that? But you really hurt him in the last fight. Doubt he's recovered. Maybe I'll have a chance. It's my job to protect. If he sees you, she's dead. Then he won't." Jason brushed a single strand of hair from Selly's forehead. "I can't risk Yama's life. Or yours." "The risk is in you returning to your parents' home," Selly replied. "If you stay away, the probability of your survival increases." "She's my Yama, Selly." Jason watched as the android's eyes darted about, watched as the machine, though now gifted with emotion, still clung to logic, still wrestled to understand why his self-preservation would ever be anything but the number one priority. "I am programmed to protect you," Selly glared. "Even from yourself." Jason shook his head. I'm sorry, Sully. He let go of her and spoke to his sliver streak. SS, play Code Lullabyte, Mark 7.
Playing,
The sliver streak said. A soft chime played, and Sully's clover-green eyes twinkled blue for a split second. She froze in place, slack-jawed. Give me your gun, Jason commanded. The android obeyed, hiking up her dress and pulling the 9mm Glock out of the drop-leg holster on her thigh. She handed it over, and Jason tucked it into the back of his waistband. Go home, Sully, he told her. Wait for me and try to understand. The android turned and sprinted off, disappearing into the night. Jason entered the limo. Humberto lowered the partition. 9132 Madison Avenue, Jason said. And as of right now, red, yellow, and green all mean go. 9132 Madison Avenue, 9:03 p.m., La Mesa, California. January 13th, 2055. Jason's sliver streak stopped pinging for the third time. He eyed the screen and saw that all 3 calls had come from Kiki Toyama. He silenced his sliver streak, then donned a pair of black leather gloves. 5 minutes, Humberto, Jason said. I don't come out by then, ghost me and call the Murphys. The driver hesitated, but nodded. Stay frosty, boss, he said. Jason exited the car, took a deep breath, and then approached his childhood home. As he crossed the street, he scoped his surroundings. The neighborhood was quiet, the full moon looming overhead. He walked across the driveway and bounded up the 4 tiny steps to the porch. Through the glass-plated lattice of the door, he saw that the lights were on. The door itself was ajar. Jason pulled the 9mm handgun from his waistband, checked its magazine, then readied it. He nudged the door open and went inside. Remaining silent, he closed the door behind him and followed the sounds of his stepmother's whimpering. As he neared the living room archway, he steeled himself to be cut in half by the great sword of Psycho, the murderous droid who crippled his colleague and friend. But as he stepped into the archway leading to the living room, it dawned on him. The machine man had been many things, but quiet was not one of them. The assassin had proven himself a yaphead. And with that realization, it became clear to Jason Korde that the presence on the voicemail, the presence behind the call from his beloved Yama, and the same presence waiting for him in that room, was not the modus operandi of a cold, casual, psychotic killer droid. No, the silent, brooding rage awaiting him in that room was hot and personal, and he knew it all too well. It was the same rage that had been boiling inside him since December of 2046, when he had found the girl who was to be his wife hanging from a hemlock conifer northwest of Mount Fuji. A rage both primal and focused, unchecked yet unashamed. Almost like the rage of a child. Hello, Zen, Jason said, pointing his gun at her. 12-year-old Zen Casper sat crisscross applesauce on the living room love seat, her state-of-the-art bionic arm equipped. In her bionic hand, she held a .380 automatic Colt pistol. She pointed the gun at Fatima Korde, who was standing a mere 3 feet away, still holding her Geek Thrill phone. The stepmother's hand trembled as she watched the girl. The girl only glared, her wet, grey eyes piercing Jason from beyond the semi-translucent face mask she wore. Her chest heaved with every breath, and her ice-blonde hair, matted with sweat, clung to her forehead. Jason saw that she was in great pain, a specific type of pain that he was also no stranger to. Phantom limb pain. His words were soft. The agony fades over time, but never quite goes away, and it'll hurt like hell when it rains. She said nothing, only continued to suck in gulps of air, her mouth locked somewhere between a yawn and a scream. Jason went on. I need you to stop pointing that gun at Mrs. Korde, Zen. She's done nothing wrong. She's good, asked the girl. The venom in the little girl's voice caught Jason off guard. It carried a bitterness beyond her years. My dad. He was good too. But he's gone now. Jason played dumb. Gone? The girl made a sound between a chuckle and a sob. You killed him, Mr. J. And then, for only a nanosecond, Jason was back on Hashima Island, a Nambu M60 revolver in his hand. He turned and pointed the gun at Frankie Casper's face. Frankie, the one he once called brother, opened his mouth and... Jason looked at Zen, shrugged, and shook his head. Why would I do that? Your dad and I are good friends. More than that, we're like... Stop lying! The girl screamed, waving her gun at Fatima. Fatima screamed in response to Zen's outburst, dropping the phone on the hardwood floor. Zen went on speaking. I know you did it because I saw it! I saw what you did to my dad! Stepmother looked at stepson. What is she talking about, Jason? I don't know. Jason lied. Zen's teeth gnashed together as she spoke. You shot the red-haired lady, too. She looked like that other lady. Like her sister. Fatima's eyes grew wide. Celestia? Jason wiped beads of sweat from his forehead, then pointed the gun at the girl again. Kid doesn't know what she babs about, Yama. Zen stood up on the love seat and jumped onto the floor. You're big capper, Mr. J. The old man showed me. Old man? You're a murderer! Jason remained silent, only glared at the child as thoughts raced through his mind. Thoughts of what he had done, who had exposed it, and how it had even been possible. Makes no sense. How could she know? Did she gain access to the livestream footage? Fatima watched Jason as silence filled the room, and no rebuttal came. Fresh tears welled in her eyes as she looked at him. Her head shook, voice quivering in denial and disgust. No, not my son. He's not a murderer. He would never do something so horrible. Jason pulled at his dreadlocks. Be quiet, Yama! Zen placed both hands on the gun and pointed it at Fatima's head. This is for my dad! Fatima closed her eyes. Oh, God! Jason waved his gun. Wait! He knelt, placed the gun on the floor, and stood up. If you know what I did, Zen, if you saw it, then you know who should take that bullet. Zen chewed on her lip, and Jason could see confusion in her eyes. He recognized it as his only chance to save Fatima. He patted his own chest. Aim right here. Pull the trigger. You know why, kid? Because if I had to do it all over again, I would. I'd kill your dad 100 times to regain what I've lost. Fatima pleaded. Jason, don't! No, Yama, she deserves the truth. And the truth is, I don't give a damn about you, kid. If I did, I would have thrown that game at Cyberlenium, and you'd still have an arm. The girl's hands shook as she held the gun, her eyes searching. But you stayed with me. When they cut me, you... Played games. Mind games. I'm always playing Zen. That's why I always win. Something changed in the little girl's eyes, and she turned the gun on Jason. That's it, kid, he said. Now you get it. He saw the trust in Fatima's eyes wane, and something broke inside him. Zen spat through clenched teeth. I hate you! I know, said Jason. This is for my dad! Jason Korde closed his eyes and readied himself to enter the darkness. Whether Ravina, the true Ravina, would be waiting for him in that void, he did not know, though he hoped. But darkness never came. Instead, only the sounds of a struggle between a woman and a little girl, fighting over the weapon that would seal his fate. "Let go!" the girl screamed. "Let go!" Jason's eyes flew open as the gun went off, the sharp, ear-piercing discharge echoing throughout the house. His ears rang as Zen Casper stumbled back and dropped the pistol, blood covering her shirt. As the child's knees buckled, she looked at Fatima with wild eyes. Jason did the same. The woman stood still, staring at nothing as blood gushed from a hole in her neck. When she fell, her head hit the hardwood floor. "Yama!" Jason screamed. Jason dove to his stepmother's side, the blood-soaked girl, less than 2 feet away, forgotten. He applied pressure to her neck with both hands as she hemorrhaged. Fatima choked on her own blood as it filled her mouth. Jason grew frantic as his jacket, shirt, tie, and gloved hands were coated in crimson. "Hold on, Yama. Hold on, okay? Just please. SS dial 91. Fatima reached up, touched Jason's lips, then shook her head. Misty-eyed, Jason froze and went silent as she gurgled a single word. He read her lips. "When?" And then Fatima Yama Korde went limp and took her last breath. Immediately, Jason thought of murder. He stood and looked at the spot where Zen Casper had been just seconds before. Gone. As he reached for the 9mm, still on the floor where he had placed it, his own words came back to haunt him. "You help me get this drive, and I'll help Zen in any way I can. You have my word." He stooped, picked up Fatima's geek thrill, and put it in his pocket. Then he grabbed the firearm that took her life and left the house. Outside, no sirens blared, nor Murphy showed. The neighborhood appeared unaware of what had happened. Jason saw the stretch limo running idle at the dark end of the street and realized his driver, Humberto, had disobeyed his orders, refusing to desert him. As he descended the porch steps of his parents' home, Humberto flashed the headlights. Jason Korde, soaked in blood with a gun in each hand, sprinted to the sedan and got in. The limo sped off into the night, its squealing tires spinning toward a kismet born of both truth and consequences. 120 1189 Samus Garden Village Homes, 12:09 a.m., San Diego, California, January 14th, 2055. Jason Korde staggered into the door of his house, a half-empty bottle of Veuve Clicquot in his hands. He stumbled, but caught himself. "Son of a... lights! 250 lumens!" The lights came on and dimmed. He shuffled to the love seat and fell onto it. With some effort, he worked himself into a seated position and took a swig from the champagne bottle. "You're alive!" Jason looked over to see Sally on the staircase. She was wearing an emerald green negligee, one of many he had bought her the previous afternoon. His eyes lingered on her for a moment before going to the bottle in his hand. "You still up?" he slurred. "I don't sleep." Jason took another swig from the bottle, swallowed, then whispered under his breath, "That was a joke." She raised an eyebrow. "Saeko was spotted in Reno. The manhunt continues, but the FBI will not remain distracted for long." Jason said nothing. Sally descended the staircase. As she made her way to the love seat, she suddenly stopped. "You're bleeding." "It's not mine," he said, then took another swig. She scowled. "You force-quit my prime directive, Jason. You prevented me from fulfilling my purpose. What if you'd been—" "But I wasn't. Look, I did what I did because I thought I could save..." He went silent. Sally took a step toward him. Fatima. After a moment, her brow furrowed. She's dead. Jason glared at her. Sally glanced at the floor. I'm sorry. She was kind to me. Who would do this? Doesn't matter. She took another step closer. It matters to me, Jason. You matter to me. He shook his head as he raised the bottle. And why should that matter? You can't even understand what I've lost. He hurled the champagne bottle at the living room wall. It shattered into 1,000 shards as it collided with a mounted digital frame. Jason screamed. Nobody understands! Afterward, he buried his face in his hands, and neither man nor machine moved or spoke for many seconds. And then, Sally drew closer. As she stood over him, Jason breathed in her Rideau perfume. He leaned back, eyes downcast. Sally stared down at him as she spoke. Yama, an affectionate term in the Arabic language, meaning mother or mommy. Jason stared up at Sally as she continued. Also sometimes used as an exclamation of surprise or distress, an English equivalent being, "O mother," or "O God," as when calling for the comfort associated with one's mother or creator. Jason's smile was bittersweet. Tears welled in his eyes. She told me to call her that the day she married my father. She didn't want to disrespect the memory of my birth mother, but she was your mother, said the android. He dropped his head, nodded. Sally offered her hand. Jason took it. She pulled him close, and his head rested on her belly. His shoulders shook as he pressed his face against her skin and wept. After a few moments, he noticed that she was soft and warm, like a human, a far cry from what he had experienced at the hotel and on the jet. Jason wrapped his arms around her waist. Slurring his words, he gazed up at her. Everyone dies. Everyone leaves. Sally gazed back, her hands in his dreads. Not everyone. He stood to his feet. Cradling her face, he looked at her as if he was seeing her for the first time. They both drew closer. She placed her hands over his, guiding them with her own as he caressed her face, neck, and bosom. She guided his hands lower still, until they rested firmly on her hips. The two touched lips over and over for several seconds, until Jason planted a kiss on Sally's neck. She gasped in response, words escaping her lips in panting breaths. But what about Ravina? As Jason gazed into Sally's half-closed eyes, his foggy mind searched for the beautiful face of a lost lover. But within the haze, it found only the vague visage of an absentee goddess, one far from him and held captive by a future of uncertainty. Amid his present, insurmountable pain, and the many enemies closing in, only one constant remained, the Omega droid. What about her? He murmured. Sally paused, stared at him, chest heaving, then laughed. She bit her lip, moaned as they continued necking. As she writhed in his arms, Jason whispered in the android's ear, I want you, Celestia. He felt her body acquiesce, become untethered as emotion possessed her. I'm here, Jason, she breathed. I'm here for you. I love you. And then, Jason Korde and Celestia, man and machine, human and imagined, joined bodies and became one.